What the hell? This is not the correct screen. Hold on.
Mail, motherfucker!
This is the correct screen. I was like, that's not right. It doesn't look right. All right, welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of Ask the King for February 2nd, 2017. If you did not see part 1 first, it's already live, or should already be live, right here on YouTube. I got tons of questions to get to, so let's jump right into them, all right? All right, first question of part 2 from Stormforced Gamer. He says, Phil, I'm learning to drive, and I'm wondering if you have any tips or advice about learning to drive or driving in general. Maybe you could talk about your story of when you learned how to drive. FYI, I live in Europe, and we drive on the opposite side of the road to the United States. I'll be driving a manual car, but any help or advice would be great. Well, first of all, most cars in the United States are automatic, so I have no advice whatsoever when it comes to driving manual or automatic. Nothing. I've never driven a manual car before, okay? Two pieces of advice I guess I could try to give you. The first is, when you're driving, it's basically two things at once, all right? It's, number one, paying attention to what you're doing, making sure you're observing the rules of the road, using proper turn signals, stopping at the right time, being observant of everything around you, so you're hitting stop signs, not hitting stop signs, stopping for stop signs. God forbid, don't drive into a stop sign. Stopping at stop signs, traffic signals, etc., all that stuff going on. That's one half of it. The other half of it is basically trying to be a defensive driver and paying attention to all of the other assholes around you. And boy, do I mean that when I say it, because it really does feel a lot of the times like a battle of not only you have to keep your shit together, but now you have to worry about what every other asshole is doing on the road, because you can't control what they're doing. And at least here in the United States, I have absolutely no idea what it's like over there, in Europe at all. But in the United States, and this is crazy, you may not believe this, after you initially get your driver's license, which most people do relatively young, in their teen years or early 20s, there's really no reason for you ever to be tested again. I'm not kidding you. We don't have after 5 years you have to go back for a retest or an eye test. None of that. Once you have your license, you have your license, and you can infinitely renew it. The only exceptions are, number one, if you get into a car accident where you're deemed that you were responsible, or number two, if you get pulled over for, say, drunk driving or something like that, then they'll take away your license and you'll have to go through remedial driving courses or whatever. But the bottom line is there's no real test to see if you're still up to driving and obeying all the laws of the road. So if you never get into a car accident and never get pulled over, you could potentially be the most hazardous driver on the planet and you'll never get in trouble for it. And you could have everyone else saying, oh, fuck, steering around you as you veer all over the roads. It's pretty crazy because there's a major problem, honestly, in my opinion. Elderly people in the United States. A lot of the times, I understand people are getting older. They still want to feel like they're independent and, maybe they don't have anyone to drive around for them. But I have probably run into at least twice a year, and this is not an exaggeration, at least twice a year, I almost get into a car accident because an elderly person who cannot fucking see properly drives at me or comes out of the lane, cuts me off, almost hits me. And I almost shit myself every time. If I wasn't super observant, I would have crashed, or they would have hit me if I didn't get out of their way. And it's funny because, there's no test. Like I said, maybe you hit a certain age criteria. There should be a retest, right? But there's not. It doesn't exist in the United States. Just you could drive infinitely until you get into a car accident. So, yeah, not only do you have to be observant of what you're doing, you have to try to be observant of everyone else on the road around you. But I will say this. Don't pay so much attention to the people behind you, okay? And what I mean by that, there's not much you could do about it. If there's going to be an asshole who's not paying attention and they're going to rear-end you, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Oh, God, he's coming up fast. Let me try to veer out of my lane to save my ass. It's usually not going to work anyway. And by the way, by you veering out of your lane, makes you legally responsible for the accident because you're the one who went out of the way of the legal bounds of where you were supposed to be. So, what I try to do when I drive, I pay attention to my right, my left, and what's all directly in front of me. I can't worry about people behind me. If there's someone on my ass, riding my tail, or, being stupid behind me, I just ignore it because there's nothing I can do about it, right? Now, of course, the one thing you do have to be observant of is ambulances and stuff like that. You have to have your ears open. So another good tip, don't blast music in the car. And a lot of people love to do this. They play the music so fucking loud, you can't even hear if there's like an ambulance or a fire engine or whatever it would be. You know, your own paramedics, whatever they're called in Europe, I have no idea. You can't hear because the music's so goddamn loud. You can't do that. You got to be like focused on what you're doing. The only other tip is, at least for me, I have no idea again what the parking situation is in Europe. I've pretty much sufficiently been able now to drive since I was 16 when I got my driver's license till now. So almost 20 years of driving. I don't usually have to back into much at all. I know a lot of people like, I got to back into that space. I got to back over here. For the most part, when I'm in like a mall parking lot or a shopping center or a supermarket or whatever, I just pull in. And then, yes, you back out when you're leaving, but I find that backing into spaces is more difficult, especially because a lot of people don't park within the lines like they're supposed to, which can make it almost impossible to judge how much distance do I have on each side if you're backing in. If you're pulling in, it's a lot easier. Backing in makes it way harder. So for me, I usually don't back into spots. If I can at all avoid it, I'll pull in straight. And it makes it easier because if you're out and you're grocery shopping or whatever, the trunk's right in front of you when you get to your car, rather than, oh, the trunk's now in the space. I got to wedge through the sides of these cars to bring all my groceries over there. That's why I usually do it like that too. So one of the things a lot of people complain about is, oh, whenever I back into a space, it's tough. So don't do it. Once I got my license, I never really did it. I don't bother with it. All right. We got a couple questions here. A few questions from Hot Sauce 123. Let's get right into them. Number one, I remember when you started on YouTube in 2008, you were using a camera. Then in 2012, you switched to direct capture. That's actually not true. It was actually early 2013. I switched to direct capture and streaming on Twitch TV. Have you ever thought about switching back to your old camera? I mean, let's just think about this realistically. The reason that I used the old camera back then is because it was the Wild West. Playthroughs on YouTube weren't prominent at all when I started doing them in 2008. Most people just did walkthroughs, which were much different than a playthrough or a let's play. And I didn't have the equipment to do direct capture. I didn't even have a widescreen camera. My camera was like a standard definition, you know, small 4:3 aspect ratio camera that I had to go crooked on my TV to even fit the whole TV in the shot. Yeah, it was popular for like a year until I bought a better camera that was widescreen, but I was popular because it was the Wild West. Today, if I were to film anything with a camera, an old camera, it would never work. Never. People would say, why is the color off? Why is this happening? Why does the audio sound like that? People are used to direct capture now. That's what they've been desensitized. That's what they need. If they don't see that, it's crap. No matter what, they immediately write it off as crap. Okay? Now, maybe as a like special event, maybe I would do something with the old camera as like a throwback. But the thing is, I can't stream with the old camera. That's number one. I can't. There's no direct capture. I can't stream it. Number two, the old camera is old and was breaking. Like one of the main reasons I stopped using the camera is because it was starting to break. As I was filming with it, it would turn itself off. The battery would only last 20 to 30 minutes. In fact, it was bad. Like, even with the battery, sometimes it was lasting only 15 minutes. Even I had a new battery, the camera would run through the battery in 15 minutes because the camera's so old, it's all worn out, okay? Digital cameras aren't meant to be used that much. This is a digital camera I was using for all that back then. It wasn't a camcorder or anything. So, yeah, anything from 2008 to 2012 was a digital camera being massively overused. And the bottom line is, I don't even know if it would work. Even if I want, let's do a special throwback, couple hours of gameplay, the camera might not even work anymore. I know where it is. It's over there in one of those bins, but I don't even know if it would work anymore. So that's why I don't use the camera. And the bottom line is, everyone wants direct capture. Everyone wants live streaming. No one's really looking for the camera anymore. All right, second question. Back in 2010, you lost a lot of weight after you lost your job. What did you do to lose weight? How did you do it? I know you have back problems, and it's hard to lift weights and do other exercises, so how did you lose the weight without excessive exercise? What was your secret? Well, I don't necessarily think it was a secret, per se. I was really overweight for multiple reasons. Number one, because I ate too much, I ate the wrong foods in excess, and I had no limitations on my body whatsoever. So, let me give you an example. When I had that office job, and I know this is going to be gross to a lot of people. I think it's gross today, but here's a perspective of one of my typical days. In the morning, I would have one of those refrigerated breakfast sandwiches you just toss in the microwave, sausage, egg, and cheese or something like that. Terrible for you, high in fat. That would be my breakfast, that and like orange juice. I would go to work and have a cup of coffee, okay? I would be working. Oh, I need another cup of coffee. And every cup of coffee, by the way, has sugar and everything in it, okay? Lunchtime, I want to go get fast food or go get some burgers or whatever. Or a big deli sandwich from the local deli, giant amounts of meat and cheese and all this stuff. Tastes delicious, insanely bad for you, okay? Oh, dinner time. Well, again, either fast food or time for me to make something at home that typically was unhealthy. There were some meals that I would make in my microwave that were pretty bad for you. Sometimes I would make burgers and stuff like that at home. Bad for you. So it was like bad food, bad food, bad food. Oh yeah, by the way, I would also drink a lot. So I would drink at night too. I'd be drinking beers or I'd be drinking hard liquor. Like right then I used to love rum and coke like crazy. So yeah, my life was just gorging excess bad foods, okay? When I lost my office job, I changed my lifestyle completely. I basically made it, I'm only going to eat twice a day. I'm not going to do excessive snacking, nothing. When I eat, it's going to try to hit the food groups, and it's going to try to be, lean. So I started, instead of going out and getting burgers, I would go out and get a turkey burger or a veggie burger or a chicken sandwich. And not a fried chicken sandwich, grilled chicken with lettuce and tomato and maybe light honey mustard or something like that. That was what my diet drastically changed. So I was eating half as much. I was eating better. And because of that, I dropped all that weight immediately because that was all excess weight from me being such a nasty lifestyle kind of person for so long. And it just kind of dropped right off my body. Didn't need exercise, didn't need anything, okay? So that was the good thing. But not everyone's in that situation. A lot of people who are overweight are not in that situation. It's not because you're constantly overeating and eating the wrong things and drinking coffee. That's the other thing. I completely stopped drinking coffee whatsoever. For a lot of people, it's because of thyroid conditions. It's because of genetics. It's because of a lot of issues. And a lot of people who are bigger tend to think of themselves self-consciously, right? And then they try things like dieting or whatever. A lot of people I know heard my story back then, and they saw the dramatic change. Because you remember, I used to be, look at my early videos, the vlogs and stuff I used to do. My face was more swollen. My body, I wouldn't be able to wear a t-shirt like this. My body would be like ripping the shirt. Right? Everything I needed to wear was extra large or bigger back then. This is a large space t-shirt. And look, it actually has wrinkles on me because it doesn't really fit me properly because I actually don't really fill it fully out anymore. Yeah, it was a way different life back then. But not everyone's in that situation. You have to understand. Not everyone's going to be able to just lose all that weight. There were people who contacted me, Phil, what's your secret? And I would try to help them. I tried it all, it didn't work. Well, what can I tell you? It's not the same for everyone. For me, the reason I was fat is because of active bad lifestyle choices. For a lot of people, that's not why people are overweight. So don't think that just because of my situation at work, it's going to work for everyone. I mean, most people have to have both a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle with excess of exercise and all this kind of stuff. It just so happened I was able to lose all that weight without it. I was lucky, okay? The third question. I remember when you were living in your old apartment, you mentioned that you bought the DDP Yoga System, but you didn't have room to use it. You tried and you didn't have any room to do it. Now that you have more space, have you ever used it? Well, here's the thing. When I moved across the country from Connecticut, that cramped, shitty condo that didn't even have enough space for me to really even do myself and my own business stuff. When I moved here, this place is so much better. I have space to stretch out, to relax. There's no... when we carry in the groceries here, right? I'm not going from a parking lot that's on the other side through ice-covered fucking walkways and going up staircases with all these groceries to bring them into my house. Here, I drive the car right into the garage, close the garage, walk right into the kitchen with the groceries. So the things that used to strain my back, I don't really do anymore. I don't drive long distances. I don't carry heavy things for extended lengths of time. And my lifestyle adjustments out here have allowed me to basically live a lifestyle where there's no strain on my back. So honestly, my back is almost better. Like, yeah, every once in a while, I'll tweak it and, oh man, I got shooting pain for a day or numbness for a day. Or, oh man, I had to really do a lot of physical work today and now I feel real tired, my back is sore. Yeah, that still happens, but not to the extent, like, it was so bad when I was in Connecticut that I had numbness all day, every day. Like, I couldn't feel my leg. Pain, shooting pain constantly, okay? And that's why I had a back stretcher. I would lay down, it would stretch me physically out to try to relieve the pressure on this herniated disc that I had. And DDP Yoga, that was the point. I was going to try to strengthen all my core muscles so that the pain would go away. I don't have the pain anymore. So no, since I moved out here, I've not done DDP Yoga. Even though now I kind of have the room for it in the living room, whatever area where I could do it, I don't really have a reason to do it. I had no problems with my back whatsoever, so I haven't tried it. If I ever did, like, oh, God forbid, please, knock on wood. If I were to fall and hurt myself or something like that, I still have it, so I would be able to try it out. So it is still there, but no, I have not had any reason or opportunity to really mess with that. Okay. Next question is from Redemption Gaming. He says, Phil, I am a viewer of yours from the greater part of 3 years now. I stumbled upon your gaming reviews known as The Hateful Truth, where you use the model maximum truth and minimum bullshit when it comes to the latest gaming releases. Now that I'm starting to do my own reviews, I called Redemption Reviews, I try to follow along the same motto, and as I watch the reviews, you also usually end up bashing the F out of mainstream gaming media, which actually leaves me very joyed. As a question for Ask the King, how can I review games and put it to scale? What's a good way to, I guess, put games in a rating scale? Well, this is kind of the big thing. That is the big question for people who review games. That everyone disagrees on this. There's no real consensus. Some people say you shouldn't use a scale at all. It's not fair. You should just say, buy the game, play the game once, or never play it. Okay? Some people agree that that's good enough. Other people say, well, you should have a rating scale, but it should be based objectively only on certain criteria, whether they're actually present in the game or not. So you actually have a checklist. Does it have this amount of gameplay? Yes or no? Does it have this many characters? Yes or no? Does it have graphics that live up to the standard? Yes or no? And just based off of that, you give it a number score. Some people think that it should be objective, that there is no criteria. You could give a game any score you want for whatever reason whatsoever, and therefore game reviews are completely infallible, and no matter what anyone says in a game review, it's okay because it's just an opinion. That, I think, is the biggest fucking load of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. You know what that tells me? Oh, we're journalists, but we're never going to be held to any kind of accountability for anything we say, and that way we have job security for life. Fuck that. That just means you could be a hack and put out the worst game reviews on the planet, but it's an opinion, so it's protected. Fuck that bullshit. That's terrible. That, I don't buy into that shit at all. You have to have some kind of criteria when you're rating a game, okay? For me, what I like to do is a few things when I review a game that leads to a rating system. The first thing I like to do is to put myself into context as someone who maybe understands the context of a game and maybe is the fan of a series versus someone who's not. So, for example, someone who's a huge fan of Street Fighter and has played Street Fighter since day one and plays Street Fighter competitively may think one thing about Street Fighter V, while someone who is not a competitive player of Street Fighter, who doesn't care about the competitive scene, who is not a hardcore fan, but maybe casually plays fighting games, they may think something completely different about Street Fighter V. And what I want to do, I always strive to put myself into those situations and explain that in my review. Sometimes I even give 2 review scores so you understand. Now, obviously, there's a lot of cases where I can't do that. For example, if the very first Persona game I'm ever playing would be Persona 5, I can't say, well, as a huge fan of the Persona series, I rated this, and as not, I rated that. Can't do that. So you can't always do that, but I like when I can do that. Being that now I've been an 8-year YouTuber, and I'm now entering year 9 of being a YouTuber, it allows me to say, wow, I have so much experience under my belt that I can make these kind of, as knowing where the franchise has been versus being an outsider to the franchise, I can kind of do those dual reviews all the time, all right? That's one factor when it comes into giving a numbered review. I have to understand your perspective, all right? Just because someone gives a game a high score doesn't mean the game is good for everyone. Maybe from their perspective as a fan of that series, it's a great game, all right? That's one thing, a criteria when it comes to scoring. Number 2, yeah, there are objective things that I look for. How many hours of gameplay is a game going to be? How many quality hours of gameplay are there? Because even though a game may be 30 hours long, if 25 hours is repetitive, boring, grinding side content just for the sake of saying the game is longer and only 5 hours of the game are meaningful, then those 25 hours are basically worthless and you need to actually factor that into your score. Graphics, story, quality of audio, quality of all that stuff, you know what I mean? Gameplay. All that stuff is objectively factored into my score. But there's always going to be subjective, right? Did you like the story or not? Is this the kind of game that hasn't enough gameplay for your personal tastes? And that's where the subjective comes in. I strive to hold myself to a standard where there's a combination of objective standards and subjective standards while also factoring in what perspective I'm coming from when I review the game. But last but not least, one of the things almost no game reviewer does, all right, including game editors. If you're an editor for a gaming news media outlet, it's their actual it's in their job description to do this, and they don't do it properly. What you should do, if you're a game reviewer, is score games compared to everything else that you've played recently, okay? So, for example, I'll give you a perfect example here, all right? Years and years ago, I rated Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 as my best game of that year. That was so long ago, right? A million years ago. Today we scoff at Call of Duty and say it's garbage, it's overrated crap. Back then, Modern Warfare 2 gave a robust and unique and fun and gripping single-player campaign combined with co-op online gameplay, a ton of robust online gameplay modes, amazing groundbreaking graphics, great controls, great audio, everything. It was on another level. Now, there were other games at the time that were also great, but for me, for the games that I had played that year, that was the best game I felt out of all the ones that I had played. It was the best one, and I rated it as such, okay? I took a lot of shit for that. But what I think people don't realize is that for me, for the games that I had played, I felt that was the best one. Did I give it 10 out of 10 in my rating score? No, but I gave it a pretty high score. If I remember correctly, I think I gave it like a 9 or a little bit above a 9 or something like that. Because I really did feel that it was the best out of everything that I compared it to that I'd played recently. Today, would I say Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is a 9 out of 10 and one of the best overall first-person shooters ever? No. You want to know why I would say that? Because I've played other ones. I've played 5, 6, 7 more years of shooters that have advanced everything. So over time, a score that you give in a review could change or could degrade based on the modern advances and other things coming out. So here's a perfect example, right? Right now, I just played Resident Evil 7. I loved it. I thought it was a great game. I thought that it combined classic survival horror with modernized gameplay mechanics like a first-person shooter mechanic, good graphics, and good story that kept you on the grip of your seat. Everything was good about it, but it was only 9.5 hours long. I still gave it a 9 out of 10. I really liked the game, okay? What if, in 6 months, Outlast 2 comes out? Now, Outlast 2 is 14 hours long, has better graphics and a better story than Resident Evil 7, okay? Does that mean that I'm going to give Outlast 2, for example, a 9.5? No! Because in 6 months, there may be another game that came out that's like this, and another game that came out that's like this. And what you should do is look at all the games recently that you're playing and say, in comparison to other games that are out right now, if you're a gamer who has to go to the store with just enough money to buy one game, all right, what game is better overall bang for your buck when it comes to all the factors you consider in a review? That's how I rate and score my games. A lot of editors and a lot of reviewers in the mainstream media never do that. What they just say is, well, it has these good things, these bad things, and subjectively I think this, therefore here's the number score. And I disagree with that completely. I think my girlfriend's actually coming home, so I'm going to close the door so I don't disturb her with my talking loudly. But I completely disagree with that philosophy, okay? I think you need to actively compare, because how can you say, just think of it this way, how can you say Uncharted 4 is a 9.5 out of 10, Doom is a 9.5 out of 10, but then you read the actual reviews that someone wrote, and they said far more positive things about Uncharted 4 than they said about Doom. Now, by the way, this is hypothetical. They're both outstanding games, and either one could be picked as a game of the year for last year. This is totally hypothetical. But I've seen reviews where it's like, negative, rating score, 9 out of 10. What? How can you have a game with all these negatives, all these shortcomings, and you rated it almost perfect? What that tells me is that there's no rating scale at all. How could you have a game? Because then they have another game that they rated positive, 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 only 1 negative, 9 out of 10. How could you say those games are rated the same? Just logically, factually, that can't happen. If any logical human would say that's not correct. But again, they hide behind their tenet of, well, reviews are just an opinion. Because it's just an opinion, you can say anything you want in a game review, and it's correct no matter what. Bullshit! It is the job of the reviewer and or the editor to make sure that game reviews are scaled properly. You have to look subjectively and objectively at everything that people submit to you as a game review and say, well, this guy said a bunch of negatives about the game. This guy said there was only 1 negative. This game just objectively is probably going to be rated higher than this one. But they don't do that. They're fucking hacks. And that's what pisses me off about these mainstream game sites. Their job, their full salary, 100% of the profit they make at their job is to make sure that what they write is legitimate, and then they come out with all these game scores that make no fucking sense. So you end up with games that are just kind of meh, that get high-ass scores. You end up with games that actually are a much more enjoyable experience than maybe another game, but it has a few shortcomings, and it gets rated way down here, because they don't fucking compare the games against each other. That's not right. So, it may be tough, yeah. It's tough comparing apples to oranges, I'll be honest. If I'm comparing Uncharted 4 to Street Fighter 5 to Fallout 4, it would be pretty hard for me to say this game is definitively better than this game is definitively worse than this game, because they're all 3 different kinds of genres. But guess what? If your job is to be a mainstream gaming journalist and it's your job to put out quality reviews, you have to do the hard work. You can't just say, oh, well, it's an opinion, so it could be anything and it can't be wrong. Fuck that. That's such a cop-out, and that's called, oh, I don't actually want to do hard work today. I just want to play a game and then throw any willy-nilly opinion on a piece of fucking paper or type anything up for a website and have no actual legitification or, justification or legitimate reasoning behind what you put on there. Bullshit. That's stupid. That's dumb. That's just such a cop-out, and I hate that shit. 100% fucking hate it, okay? All right. So there you go. That's what I do to help scale my games and my game reviews. 1 or 2 more questions, then we'll take a break. Next question is from Richter Tryhard. He says, Phil, if you could use a time machine to phone call yourself 5 years ago, what would you say to your younger self? I mean, holy shit. First of all, there's a lot of things I would do. First of all, I would probably obviously say all the things about finances. Don't spend money on stupid shit like statues because the money ain't going to last, right? That's number 1. Don't spend money on frivolous stuff at all because the money ain't going to last. And it didn't. Who knew? My money could have exponentially skyrocketed or could have tanked. It hasn't really done either. My money has kind of gone down at a small slope consistently, okay? But if I had known that, I probably would have saved every penny I could have. You know, honestly, I would have not, I'll be honest here, bothered kind of going on some of the expensive trips I went on. Like some of those trips that I went to, some of those conventions and stuff, were they nice to go to? Yeah, but they never panned out to really anything that too positive for me. And they were really, thousands of dollars. And I'll say this again because some people apparently don't hear me. I paid for everything on those trips. Whenever we went to a convention, I paid for everyone's plane tickets. I paid for the hotels. I paid for the transportation. That was all me. So I love it when people say, oh, Phil was a cheapskate. I paid for everything. I paid everyone's way everywhere we went. So I don't know what the fuck people are talking about. They like to make shit up to make them look better. But I paid for everything all the time. So every trip we went on, I was dumping several $1,000s, if not more, for everything. And it really didn't pan out. It was fun, but it really didn't pan out to anything that like made me a lot of money for YouTube. It didn't really benefit the business that much. I thought maybe long term it would, and it ended up it didn't. So in that regard, maybe I kind of wouldn't have spent money on that. Certainly, one thing that I would have done, which I thought I had done, would cover my bases when it comes to business relationships. And what I mean by that is mixing friendship and business always kind of leads to problems. And I was very wary about this, because I'll be honest with everyone. When I was starting out with YouTube, I had known about what had happened with Screw Attack. Many of you may not know what happened with Screw Attack. ScrewAttack.com, all right, before they even were ScrewAttack.com, they were a group of friends and gamers who wanted to make gameplay videos, reviews, all kinds of fun, creative stuff for the internet. They were very successful, but as they were trying to change the business and expand and do all this stuff, there was a major disagreement, and dissension between the ranks. It was oh God, Stuttering Craig and Handsome Tom. They were the two figureheads of the business. They were the two main guys involved, and there were all these other people with them, but they were the two big guys who basically were in charge. The two of them ended up having major business disagreements. They completely destroyed their friendship, weren't even friends anymore, separated. Tom went off to do his own thing, while Craig went off to keep doing Screw Attack. And it's kind of sad, because these are two guys who we saw on camera for years who were friends, right? And they had apparently never up front talked about concretely settling business arrangements, ended up having a business disagreement and lost that friendship. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Because that's pretty much exactly what happened to me. For me, it's a little bit different. Because for me, when I started with YouTube, I wasn't intending on doing YouTube as a business ever. I had started on YouTube as a hobby. I wasn't intending to ever make money doing it. It was just something as a silly side thing. I would go to a tournament and record. I would record myself swearing at a silly game, you know? And then when I ended up losing my job and I had nothing to fall back on, then I started doing YouTube as a job, and all of a sudden it exploded as this great profitable thing. And I said, I'm going to bring in all my friends into it. Let's have people come over and play games with me constantly and go to tournaments and do co-op and do all these events, and let's do creative series together. And I kind of saw it as a fun social thing that people could all have fun together and make money together at the same time. I didn't necessarily see it as business. Sadly, now I know some people saw it as business rather than us just kind of getting together to have fun, and that's really where it went wrong. Now, again, I don't know what happened with the Screw Attack people, but the same thing pretty much happened with me. And that sucks. I wish I could have gone back and said, all right, if I'm going to talk $1 of money to anyone with anything we're going to do together, we're going to outline it up front. Because by not outlining it up front, it led to the chaos that happened later. Although I'll be honest, in a lot of ways, there were things I did up front. There's a lot of miscommunication and bullshit. One thing that I will say, because I am angry at this, and I will say this once, and I'm never going to really bring it up again. With respect to the pact when it came to Project 7, I concretely, in both in-face discussions and through email, outlined to them when we started that I would consider maybe doing something monetary down the line, paying them for their work, and they told me up front they didn't want any money. We don't want money. We're looking for attention. We want our YouTube channel to blow up. So with this Project 7, with all the work we're putting in, we're going to hope to get plugs and everything so people will come over and check out our stuff, okay? And that was it. Now, 6 months, 8 months down the line, after they put all this work into Project 7, they weren't seeing they weren't getting what they wanted out of it. And then they decided they didn't want to do Project 7 anymore. But they weren't really transparent with me about it. I guess basically they told everyone under the sun about this except for me that they would have liked money. Well, they never said that to me. So there was no way that I could have actually known that. Now, answering this question from Richter Tryhard, I know it's bullshit. When people tell you they probably don't want money, it's bullshit. Bottom line is everyone wants money. The bottom line is everyone wants a cut. Everyone wants a piece. Everyone wants something, right? When they see someone who's making out, they want some of that. Even if, regardless if they are a big piece of it or not, they want some of it, all right? And I get that. And I should have sat down with everyone who was involved with all the projects that I did over the years ahead of time and said, listen, we're going to work on this together and it becomes profitable. Here's how we'll all split the profits. But I didn't do that. I assumed that because we were all friends, we'd be able to work it out, and it didn't work out like that. That sucks. It sucks that I lost those friendships because of bullshit behind the scenes that I was never notified of until I'd already moved across the country. But that's life, I guess, you know. So that being said, that's one of the things definitely. I mean, I would have told myself, any relationship with your friends, you're going to bring them into business, you must hash it out ahead of time or things will go south. I obviously would have told myself to just mellow out and not be as uptight and defensive as I have been over the years. As I've already said this publicly before, but I do feel that my initial reaction to when people were doing things like this is how you don't play videos and stuff like that really hurt me, because back then I didn't understand that a lot of it was meant to just be silly and be fun, versus now a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are malicious and evil and just fucking trying to rip me a new asshole and make me look like a horrible person so that no one will ever go to my YouTube channels and watch my content ever. But back then they weren't necessarily that bad or even like that whatsoever. I almost wish that I had known what they were, because again, I don't really watch the videos, and this is how you don't play videos. I maybe watched snippets or parts of them and never watched the things in their entirety. And And because of that, what people told me about them ended up being what I thought was a fact about them, when in reality, that wasn't really what was a fact about a lot of them. I kind of wish I had reached out to these people and had conversations with them about it and said, that's kind of funny. I'd like to actually, laugh and joke with you about it. Maybe let's collaborate maybe on something and do something silly together, right? Rather than, oh, I'm so angry that people stole my videos and made a hateful video about me against my will. Instead, if I had been more open-minded like I have been. I mean, let's give you a perfect example. Last year, my incident, right? My accident. We all know what I'm talking about, When it happened, if I had reacted, oh, fuck everyone, you're all dicks for making fun of me and blah, 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 probably would have been the end of me on YouTube. But instead, I reacted in a way, you know what? It happened. You're right. Let's all laugh together. People made fucking memes about it. I loved them. I retweeted them. I made them my goddamn profile on places. It was a lot of fun. I rolled with it. And because of that, it didn't negatively affect me at all. In fact, if anything, I had a little bit of a splurt. Oh, God, I said, didn't mean to say it that way. I had an increase. I had a temporary increase in popularity for a little while there because people saw that I took it so well. And like, damn, that's a guy who knows how to roll with a punch, right? If I had done that back when This Is How You Don't Play started, we could be in a completely different fucking situation than we are right now. The problem is, you can't foresee that. You can't go back. You can't change time. You can't change the past, and that sucks. Anything else? I'm trying to think, is there anything else? I really am. Shit, I mean, I probably would have warned myself to be a hell of a lot more careful when it comes to fan art and stuff like that, because that's what led to me getting struck with all those false copyright strikes that destroyed my business, honestly, and that's why I'm in the financial situation I'm in right now, being plain honest truth with you. That is why. Yeah, I would have maybe continued to see a gradual slow decline in my income if I hadn't changed and improved and done stuff. But that hit that I took in 2015 has permanently fucked over DSP Gaming. That channel literally is doing half as good as it did 2 years ago because of the false copyright strikes. It's bullshit. That's probably the thing. So to recap, I'd probably say, number one, if I could call myself 5 years in the past, don't spend money on stupid shit like collectibles and stuff. It's not going to pan out. It's a waste of time. Be careful when you involve your friends in your business. Hash stuff out ahead of time to avoid situations like the screw attack situation. And then incidentally, the situation I found myself ended up being in years later. Roll with the punches when it comes to people doing stuff like making fun of you and stuff like that. Laugh with it rather than get angry at it, and things will turn out a lot better, right? And be super careful with who you trust. There you go. Those are the 4 things I probably would have told past me. All right. One more. Let's do one more quick question, then I'll take a break, and then we'll do one more part to finish the show, okay? So final question here. This one is from... Oh, it's another question. No, it's not. Oh, never mind. Here it is. This one is from Pocho Max, and he says, what is the first anime that you remember watching? Have there been any shows or movies you've seen in your lifetime that you think you're good enough to recommend to people new to anime? The first anime I ever watched was Sailor Moon. The only reason it's the first anime I ever watched because it was the first one that was ever on United States broadcast television in the morning. They put it in the time slot normally when a children's cartoon would be on. I was like, what the shit is this? And then I think after that it was original Dragon Ball followed by Dragon Ball Z. Again, same reasonings, because it was put on as a broadcast cartoon in the mornings. I believe this was when I was in late elementary school to early high school. I'm trying to remember at what point it became mainstream, because honestly, anime did not become mainstream in the United States till the late 90s, when they started to really bring it over in droves on VHS tape, and then DVDs, when DVDs became prominent. And quite honestly, it didn't hit its stride until Cartoon Network started doing anime. They had blocks of anime in the afternoon when kids were coming home from school. You'd come home to see the new episode of Dragon Ball Z, which is hilarious because the show's like 10, 15 years old. But people were rushing home to see a new episode of Dragon Ball Z that's ancient, just because it's dubbed in English, basically. Dragon Ball Z is when it got big for people in America. And for me in particular, that's when I first got my first major exposure to anime. I started watching things like, off the internet, whatever I could absorb off the internet that was anime. And then, of course, when Adult Swim started, you had shows like Cowboy Bebop and stuff like that, Trigun, that I started to watch, and that was kind of my major exposure. I can't really answer the second half of the question. What's a good anime for a newcomer to jump in? Listen, out of all the people who watch anime, I'm probably in the vast minority. I don't know much at all compared to others. So I am not an informed person to ask a question like that, okay? All right, that's it for part 2 of Ask the King. When I come back, the final forum questions and, yes, the Twitter questions are all coming. So don't go anywhere. Thanks for watching, everyone. The final part is right around the corner. I'll see you then.